Okay, let's get
Okay.
started. So, I want to thank you today for taking part in class. My name is Michael Randolph. I'm with the Center for Nonprofit and Community Development, Inc. This is a Zoom, and the Zoom class today is how to establish a 501c3 and how to fund it. This is one of many services that we provide to the public. One second. Man, this thing, oh, there we go. So, the Center for Nonprofit, we are a 501c3 organization, and what we do as our mission is we strengthen organizations that strengthen communities. Here are some of the services that we provide, and you can see in the red having to do with how to do a grant, how to do a business plan, how to do program development and evaluation, government procurement, on that is 501c3 preparation. But also, you can see also in the blue, we do a host of other things related to providing our services. So for me, I started this journey about 20, 25 years ago, maybe 30 years ago. And my first thing was that I came out of one of the poorest communities in America. And I've seen so many programs come and go. And I've seen that my people and us always stay the same. So I asked to be blessed with an idea on how to solve these problems and how to move our community forward. And I was blessed because God gave me the insight on how to move it forward. So we started in 2011, although the organization itself started in 2007. When I say we started in 2011, that's when we became incorporated. What we do, we specialize in developing neighborhood planning and economic development initiatives in poverty-stricken communities. That's our specialty. We go into those poor neighborhoods and put together strategies that uplift those neighborhoods. Our approach is sustainability. Our approach to sustainability is playing around. Give me 1 second. Somebody else is about to come into class. Let's admit
Okay.
that person. Okay, I've just admitted that person, so they should be able to come in and hear what we're doing. So let me move forward. So we focus on creating a social entrepreneur model. That is, that what a lot of nonprofits fail, because as they begin to put together their strategy, they don't have anything in terms of sustainability. We believe that you need to model your nonprofit around a business model. And we're going to talk about that model later on in terms of how you sustain yourself. You create your own business so you got money coming in to sustain your business. We focus on creating national models and best practices. And as you can see, to date, we've provided services to over 1,800 nonprofits from around the country. Okay, I'm clicking this button for it to go to the next slide. There we go. So we're currently in 10 states. That is, that we provide services to nonprofits in 10 different states to date. And these are the states that you're looking at, from California to Florida. Each of these states, we were approached by them and we were asked to help them to prepare that paperwork to be a nonprofit. In Florida, we're in 8 different areas, anywhere from Hillsborough County to St. Pete. To date, we've been able to get over $75 million to different nonprofits throughout the country. And the $75 million is based upon so many multi-grants that I've been a part of over the years, that comes to this amount. If you go to Facebook, you'll see that we've been recommended by over 1,000 folks. And please, I challenge you to go to our Facebook page and you'll see that we have over 1,000 recommendations in terms of the services that we provide. Here's just some of our accomplishments, and I'm going to email this to everybody in class so that you can see where we've been and where we're going at now. Just understand that we understand best practices. That's one of the things that we are best at, and evidence-based approaches. 501c3, and that's the focus of this class. What are your learning objectives for today's class? First, you should know what is a nonprofit, what are bylaws, what is a purpose statement, what are articles of incorporation, what is a conflict of interest policy, solicitation requirements, your 1023 application, your state exemption. All of these are the different things that you have to have in place in order to operate your nonprofit legally. What is a nonprofit? A nonprofit is a tax-exempt organization that serves a public interest. It can be a church, educational institution, charitable, a religious organization. All of them fit under a nonprofit. A nonprofit seeks to help the public as opposed to a private person. I mean, as opposed to a private person that's only trying to help themselves. There are over 29 different types of 501c. By far the best type of 501c3 is what's known as a 501c3 corporation, because it provides donors with a tax exemption for their contribution. That is, when people give you money, that person can then reduce their taxes by putting down what they gave to you. Purpose. By far, the first thing you want to do when you start some nonprofit is to create a purpose. A purpose goes to the why. Why are you doing what you're doing? A mother, for example, that lost a son in the streets to violence, and she wanted to do something in order to make that death not just be another number. So she decided that her purpose in life now is to provide the tools to young people that are at risk so that their life might be longer. So her purpose becomes the reason why she's doing what she do. So that's the first thing you want to establish is your purpose. Why is it that you do what you do? Having established your purpose, now the next thing on the agenda is your bylaws. If you notice, if we drop the by, the only thing we have left are laws. So the bylaws are the laws to your organization. Now, let's talk about a breakdown of the different components of your bylaws. First, you have to have a definition of your board of directors. You have to have qualifications. For example, you might say our board members must reside in the state of Florida or New York, but you have to have qualifications. You have to have a number of directors, and most funders want to see at least 3 board members. And the reason why you want to have 3 or more board members is you want to make sure it's odd. So you want to have 3 board members, 7 board members, or 15 board members if you decide, as long as it's an odd number. The next thing you need to have is a conversation about your directors. How long do you want your directors to be in office before they are re-elected again? Most times, you can say every 4 years. And you can re-elect yourself every 4 years into eternity, as long as you have a system set up to show that we vote every 4 years. The next thing you want to do is to talk about how do people resign from your organization? Normally what happens is that board member will give you a letter saying that, you know, I hit lotto, I'm going to the Bahamas, so I'm not going to be on the board anymore, and here's a check, a donation, hopefully. The other thing is, let's say, for example, you're in a situation whereas you got a board member, and that board member curses and gets drunk all the time, and they come to the board meeting, and y'all remove that board member, but yet the board member take you to court, and the judge said, no, y'all can't remove that board member. And the first thing the judge is going to say is that I'm looking at your bylaws, and I don't see anything in here talking about how do you remove a board member. That's why you have to have what's called a removal clause. And that clause said that for any board member to be removed, at least 3/4 of the board members can vote that person out. So you need to have something in there to show how you deal with that person, and that's why this is called your bylaws. This is what the courts are going to look at when when you have to have a legal type of situation. They're going to look at your bylaws. The next thing you want to do is your annual report. The annual report is something that you do at the end of every year. And the annual report is that an opportunity for you to reflect on, did we do everything we were supposed to do this year? If not, why not? And how do we plan for the following year? You should have at least established regular board meetings. And your board members should know when those meetings are. For example, you might say that the board of directors will meet the first Wednesday of every month. But you have to have it as part of your bylaws, because when a board member doesn't attend a meeting and you're trying to remove them, you can say, according to our bylaws, you were supposed to attend a meeting every month, and that's in our bylaws. So when you don't attend meetings, we can remove you. The other thing you want to do is special meetings. For example, if your board meets every month, you always want to have special meetings set up for when something comes up and you need to talk about it. So you can always, it's what we call special meetings, and they can happen at any time. And of course, you have your offices, and your offices of your corporation can be anywhere from the president, secretary, and those other titles. A lot of organizations have committees, and the committees are those groups that do the work. Let's say, for example, if you have a youth organization, and that youth organization, let's say, for example, had a board of a committee. One committee might be employment committee to help young people get jobs. Another committee might be a health committee to help people with youth concerns. There might be so many different other committees that consist of that consist of board members. And what the committees do is that every month they go back to the board of directors and tell the board of directors what's going on in the different areas. That's why committees are very important. The next thing is a public statement. Make sure you elect at least one person from your organization or two to speak on behalf of your organization. If you don't, and something comes up, you got all your board members talking. You should always have one person that speaks on behalf of the board of directors. Again, that's why this is your bylaws. Just say what the law is to your organization. So if some board member decides to speak when they're not supposed to be talking on the issue, they can be removed because you got it as part of your bylaws, your public statement. The other thing you want to do is what's known as indemnification. Let's say, for example, someone should come to an event that you're giving, and that person falls down. And that person sues you. That person can not only sue the corporation, but they can sue each and every individual board member. they can take your house, your car, and anything else they want to take. Unless you have a clause that's called indemnification. Basically what you're saying here is that no board member shall be responsible for the liability of the corporation. That's how you protect your board member. Now, once you got your bylaws together, now you're going to do what's known as the Articles of Incorporation. And the Articles of Incorporation is the legal document that you put together in order to, and by the way, I'm going to send everybody in class today a copy of this presentation. The Article of Incorporation is what you do to make you legal. That's what you want to do to make you legal. You have to register in the state that you reside in. When you file with your Articles of Incorporation, the first thing you're going to have is, for example, the name of your corporation. The second thing is the duration. How long are you going to be around? The next thing is the purpose. Why are you doing what you do? The next thing you want to have is a public benefit to say that we represent and we serve the public. The next article in your Articles of Incorporation is going to be your nonprofit nature. In your case, your nonprofit nature is going to be 501c3. And then the next clause is called personal liability. Your personal liability clause says that no board member shall be responsible for any debt that the nonprofit might incur. So let's say, for example, you're a nonprofit and you lose your grant and you're no longer able to pay your bills. Well, your creditors can come after the corporation. But if you got this clause called personal liability, they can't come after you. The next clause is a dissolution. And this clause right here, you say that when you're going to dissolve your corporation, you're going to either give it to another nonprofit, a church, or the government. But you cannot split the money up among the board members. And then the next clause is dealing with making sure you have things in your articles that talk about the money, prohibited distribution, that the money is not going to be used to pay off board members or anything like that. It's only used for the purpose of the organization. And then you need to talk about your restricted activities. As a 501c3, you cannot support a candidate for office. So you're restricted in terms of what you can do. And one of the things you can't do is to endorse a political candidate for office. Conflict of interest. A conflict of interest comes into play when anybody other than the CEO or president of an organization is getting paid. A conflict of interest arose when the board member is getting a monetary benefit or something of value from being on the board of directors. Now, if it was a for-profit corporation, it'd be okay. You could give that person money, pay that person money. But as a nonprofit, the whole idea is that people are serving on the nonprofit because they really want to make a difference. And a lot of funders, they frown upon nonprofits that pay their board members or anything of that nature. And the reason why the CEO or president is the only person that get paid on the board of directors is because that person actually oversees the day-to-day operation of the organization, where the board of directors might come together once a month for a meeting. Then you want to get your EIN number. Your EIN number, you can go online and get your EIN number. This EIN number is what you use to get your corporate ID. Now, you have to put in your Social Security number when you go online. And the reason why you put in your Social Security number is that they want to make sure that you're a United States citizen. Once you put in your Social Security number, they drop that Social Security number and they send you to the page to actually put in the information to get your corporation 501c3. The 1023 application is the application that you complete in order to get your status as a 501c3. Now, you got several ways to get your 1023. You have what's known as the easy version, because you're making under $25,000 projected for the next 3 years. So you can go online and you can go online and do this application, and this application is called Streamline. It's like $275, and you normally can get your tax identification. I mean, you can get your 501c3 status within three weeks, normal. Now, the reason why I suggest folks go this way is that if you don't have money in the bank, don't act like you got money in the bank. So go the cheapest way. So project that, as far as we know at this point, it's not going to be more than that $25,000 amount. If it does become more than that amount and you're blessed, most nonprofits are not, because you had to be around before you really get money. If you're blessed, it's not a penalty. On the other hand, if you are a nonprofit and you got money in the bank already, let's say you got $100,000, well, then you want to fill out the 1023, the more complete form. And that could take anywhere from 6 months up to a year to get your 501c3, unless it's broken down to time. And I think they might have, because now you can do that online. So 2 ways you can go. The nonprofits I deal with are nonprofits just getting started, and they want to get that status like within 3 weeks, so they can start moving towards bringing in money, because they don't have money. Once you get your nonprofit status as a 501c3, the next thing is to complete what's known as the DR5. And every state has it. Every state has a DR5 type of application. Most, anyway. And basically what you're saying, basically what this form is to say that when you go to a store, let's say to buy a computer or to buy, let's say, computer supplies, they can't charge you sales tax, because only the state can exempt you from paying sales tax. But once you get your 501c3 status, you're tax exempt on a federal level, then the government on the state level will automatically grant this to you if you file your application. And with this application, you have to file every 5 years. Again, every state differs in terms of whether or not they give and break off of sales taxes. Every state has this, and it's called a solicitation form. In order to operate in any state, you must be licensed by that state to operate. A lot of people think that if you get your 501c3, that you're licensed to be in the state to do business, but you're not. That 501c3 is a tax status. It only gives you rights related to the tax, related to the nonprofit not paying taxes in that respect, but it doesn't grant you the right to solicit money in your jurisdiction. Every state must do this. And Florida is called a 10-100. Folks, you can get in a lot of trouble if you do not file this application every year with the state. And basically what you're saying is that this is how much money we made, this is where the money came from, and this is what the money was spent on. The grant. Before we go to the grant, are there any questions related to the 501c3?
No, not so far. You're doing pretty good for me.
Excellent. And I'm not mad, so let's keep on going. Now, here's the question, folks. You got your 501c3. You're happy as you can be, but you ain't got no money. So, how do you get money? It's called the grant. What are you going to learn from this class, from this part of the class? First, we want you to be able to describe the different types of grants, describe the different types of grantors. We want you to be able to identify the tools available to grant seekers. We want you to be able to understand the fundamental of writing a grant, a proposal, and understanding grant terms and planning your next step. Types of grants. There's a number of different types of grants. The first type of grant is what's known as an unrestricted grant. Unrestricted grants may be used for general purposes. It's called unrestricted. Most grants are not unrestricted grants. Most grants are what we call restricted grants. That means if you get that grant, you must use it for a particular program or a particular project. Let's say, for example, if you got a grant for working with at-risk youth, and you started your program, but the people that you were serving was adults. That was like 40, 45. You can use your grant because the program is restricted only to at-risk youth. Or, for example, if you're going to do a teenage pregnancy or substance abuse, it has to be restricted to that. On the other hand, the first grant that we talked about, if it's an unrestricted grant, they just say, hey, take this money and use it for whatever you want, as long as it's consistent with your purpose. Now, after the other type of restricted grant is what's known as seed money. Seed money is when you're just starting a new program or you're just getting started. So for nonprofits, they write a seed grant in order to bring on their first employee, who should be the CEO. They then write a grant and say to a funder that we're just getting started, we need money to bring on our first employee, our CEO, who's going to be responsible for running the organization and bringing in future funding as for the structure to the organization. The other type of grant is known as a capital grant. A capital grant is normally like for a building or buying land. Let's say, for example, if you wanted to do affordable homes, that would be a capital grant. Let's say, for example, you want to do a shelter. Let's say for domestic violence, homelessness, that will be a capital grant. Now, the difference between a capital grant and a program grant is a program grant is used to bring on people. A capital grant is used to purchase a building or a piece of land. So sometimes you can go after a grant and it can be doubled. You can say, hey, we're going after program money and we're going after money to buy a building. The other type of grant is called an endowment, and that's mostly for colleges and universities. Somebody died, and then they bestow that money, and the university use the principal, the interest on that money to continue on. And then we have what's known as a challenge or matching grant. Sometimes an organization will say to you, we will give you this grant, but we only will give you part of it. So let's say, for example, you ask for $100,000, and they say to you, we challenge you to come up with another. $20,000 in order to make it $100,000. In other words, we'll give you 80, but you got to come up with 20. And it's not hard. It's not hard only because you're going to learn in this class. It's that there's over 10,000 foundations and corporations that are giving money. And then at the end, you have what's known as in-kind support. And in-kind support is when any time anybody wants to donate their time to your organization. It might be people that want to volunteer. You want to include that in your grant. Because you want to show these are the number of people of volunteering. This is the amount of money that we would have to pay them if they was asking for a fee. Grantors. Grantors are the people that give the money. And there are different types of grantors. The first type is the individual. The individuals like you and I, and the majority of the people that give money are individuals. And a lot of people don't even know that they're giving money. For example, a lot of times when I talk with people in reference to, do you, give money to charity and things of that nature, some people will say to you, no, I just don't have the money. And then I say, well, do you go to church? Sometime on Sunday? I said, sure I do. I said, do you pay your tithe? They said, sure I do. I said, guess what? That's a donation. So that's why we say the majority of people are individuals that give donations. Another example is the Girl Scouts. When you buy those cookies, that's what's a donation. Okay. Then the next level of donation comes from family and community foundation. A community foundation is a foundation in which the families are biologically connected to each other, like the Gates Foundation, like the Obama Foundation, like the Clinton Foundation, because the brother and the sister and the nephew, that's what we call a family foundation. The other type of foundation is what's known as a community foundation. And a community foundation are foundations that create funding for people in a particular community. If we're in Florida, we have what's known as the Hillsborough County Children's Board. And they provide funding for individual organizations that are in line with their vision and their mission. They provide them funding. Now, here's the thing. No matter how good your program is, if you're not from Hillsborough County and you submit a proposal, you're not going to get funding. Again, it's what's known as a community foundation. Like Tampa Bay, for example, foundation. They will only fund you if you're in Tampa Bay. All of those foundations are what we call community foundations. And then you have what's known as corporate foundations. They're all over the place. Target, Best Buy, you have you got it's so many of them. You got all of them. You got them all over the place. For some reason, I can't remember all those corporations. Walmart, and on and on and on. What you might not know is that by law, these corporations that convert to foundation must give up to 5% of their net proceeds to 501c3 corporations. That's why I'm emphasizing. Make sure you become a 501c3 corporation. So they have to give up to 5% of their net profit. And let me tell you, net profits can be big time. Think about the net profits of Coca-Cola Company, the net profit of Walmart, the net profit of Amazon. Those are some large dollars. Now, the reason why corporations give money and create foundations, that is, and give money, is not necessarily for what people think. A lot of people think that they do it because they're trying to get a tax write-off. What they don't understand, most corporations, a lot of corporations pay little to no taxes. They pay little to none. The reason why they do it is that corporate image. They want to show that they're giving back. Then you have what's known as the next type is you have like federated funds, like the United Way. And then, of course, finally you have what's known as government funds. Now, everybody in class today, when you get this presentation, make sure you look at the advantages and the disadvantages. Don't go after money simply because it's out there. Look at the advantages as well as the disadvantages when you go for that money. Having said that, let's talk about how do you find the money. Well, I have listed here a couple of things that you can do to go to find the money. And I highlight in red, however, two of the things that I think is the most best. Let's start with the Foundation Center. let's say you wanted to create a youth program in Tampa, at-risk youth. Well, the Foundation Center is where you go to find out who's giving money. There are over 10,000 foundations and corporations that's linked to this site. So when you go to this site, in essence, you're linked to the money. So let's say you go to the site right here. Now you put in, the first thing you put in is the location. You put in Tampa Bay, for example, or Hillsborough County, or wherever the jurisdiction you're coming from. Then you type in $100,000. And then you type in at-risk youth. Now, everybody that's giving money for at-risk youth will come up on your screen. So what you do then is select the first 5, submit a proposal to them, and then the next 5. If you don't get the first 5, you keep on until you get that grant. Now, here's the thing. Now, the Foundation Center, if you want to get started now, they charge $149 a month, I think, or maybe more a month to use this site. But if you're just getting started, what you want to do is to go to the main library. Oh, man, I forgot. Most libraries are closed. Normally, I would suggest that you go to the main library in your city, your jurisdiction, because they would let you use this website free of charge. If you did go to the website now and you put in foundationcenter.com, they would ask for a fee. But at some point, you definitely want to, after this virus is calmed down and we're able to get back out there, go to that local library and then start to find some money. Now, here's the thing. Only do it for your first year. Because once you do it for your first year, you got money now from that first grant. Now you got your office. Now that you got your office, your grant for the next year is going to be a grant for fundraising. And that's how you're going to be able to get the Foundation Center free so you can use it in your office. Because if you go to the library, most times you have to wait. But you have to do what you got to do now because you don't have the money. But once you get that first grant, use Foundation Center, get a subscription. The other thing is what we call grants.gov, and this is where you go to find federal grants. Let's talk about the different steps you want to do to increase your chances of getting that grant. First, make sure you read the applications and the guidelines. I've worked with hundreds, if not thousands of people that go for a grant. And I have a conversation with them. They say they don't understand why they didn't get it. And then I look at that grant proposal, and I look at what the guidelines were from the funding. I said, you didn't follow the guidelines. The other thing you want to do is to increase your chances is talk to a person that received that grant last year. For example, Bank of America, for example. And Bank of America, if we received that grant last year, you can't receive that grant that they give for another 2 or 3 years. So if you call that person that received that grant, they're more willing to work with you and give you some suggestions on increasing your chances of getting that grant. The other thing you want to do is to say, for example, if you go for a Bank of America grant, look at who was the past reviewers, the past people that sat on the committee to determine who got the money. Find out who they are. Get in contact with them and get feedback from them as to what are the best possibilities that you can use not to make sure you get that grant. And then make sure you talk to the person, the program officer. Make sure you speak to that person. Because the program officer, I find when I go for grants, it's a key person. Because I can run past that program officer or contact person and ask them I can run some ideas past them. And they're going to tell me, look, Mike, like that idea, but you might want to add this, you might want to add that. For me, I want to use that information so when I write the grant, see, I got inside information already. So that's another strategy. You can use any of those 4 strategies to increase your chances of getting that grant. Now, the first thing we need to do when we're talking about going for a grant is to understand and be able to define what the problem is. If there is no problem, there is no grant. And we present the problem in terms of a problem statement or a needs assessment. That's how we begin to talk about the problem. When we talk about the problem, we need to also specify the conditions in which we plan to change. We want to show that it's important and it's significant and needs to be solved right now. We want to show that it's feasible and manageable and there's a solution to solve the problem. We want to be able to show what happens if you don't solve the problem. Because those are some of the things that we want to do in terms of putting together a statement of the problem. Make sure you go through this whole slide right here to get the particulars. In order to present your theory related to the problem you're doing and what's known as quantitative research and qualitative research. Quantitative research is research when we show the numbers. Qualitative research is when we show the subjective personal feeling of a person. So let's break it down if we follow the difference between the two. Let's say, for example, we're doing a situation where we're working with at-risk youth. When we do our quantitative research, we'll go to Google, we're going to type in how many at-risk youth live in Tampa. Bam. That's going to give us the numbers. So we're able to do the quantitative research, the numbers. The next thing we need to do, since we got the numbers, we need to do now what's known as qualitative research. And we can do qualitative research by doing focus groups, interviews, surveys. Let's say in the case of at-risk youth, you bring together 5 at-risk youth at McDonald's. You're feeding them. You're asking them questions about what it is that would happen to stop you from committing crime, or why do you commit crime. You're going to take this information right here, and you're going to make it part of your grant. So when you write your grant, you're going to say, based on our research, we found that there was over 10,000 at-risk youth that live in Tampa, for example. We also found when we talked to the at-risk youth, these were the problems that were of most concern to them, and that's how we put together the grant, using based on the quantitative and qualitative research. Now, keep in mind, quantitative research is objective. I mean, you're basing it on the numbers. Qualitative research is subjective. You're basing it on what people are saying. And there are several ways that we can do research. We can do it by way of fact finders. That is, we can go to the Census Bureau and get information. Then they've since changed this fact finders to another name. But it is the Census Bureau. We can get all kind of information there. If you're in Florida, you can go to what's known as Florida TAR. That's where we can get any health information. And then if we're trying to get research on the demographics in poor neighborhoods, we can go to city data in order to get that information. This is a few of the many types of ways we can do the research. You've identified the problem now. You know what's wrong. Now comes the solution. And the solution is called the problem. The solution is called the program or the project. So, the solution breaks it down in terms of goals and objectives. The first thing you want to do is to put together your goals. A goal is a broad statement of what you want to accomplish. A goal is really about the final impact or outcome you wish to bring about. So let's say, for example, you start with the problem of teenage pregnancy. As an example, that's a problem. Well, your goal then will be to reduce teenage pregnancy. So the goal is always the final result that you want to bring about. After you bring about the goal, now you got to talk about the steps that you plan to take in order to end teenage pregnancy. In this case, your objectives might be, for example, mentor programs. Your objective might be after-school programs. Your objective might be so many different things that lead you to your goal. A goal should be specific. A goal should be immediate. It should be measurable. It should be practical. It should be logical, and you should be able to evaluate it. Types of objectives. There are different types of objectives related to a person's behavior, to their performance, process, and the product, objective. So read those objectives when you get this presentation. In order to actually bring your program forward, once you got your goals and your objectives out of the way, now you have to come up with the program itself. And it's called program design or program method. In your program design, this is where you begin to talk about everything you need. You start off with what is the objective. Then you go to, well, what personnel do I need? What staff and qualifications do I need? What are going to be my job subscription? Then you also have to put that in description of what are the facilities that you're going to need? What equipment do you need? What materials is going to be needed? Then you need to talk about how is the program going to be administered? How are things going to be coordinated? What is the scope of activity? And this is very important, then you got to give a description of what's going to happen from day one until when you close your doors for the next sprint. For the first 30 days, you should have as your strategy when you break down your program implementation. For the first 30 days, you have to have how you're going to bring on, how you're going to hire staff. So the first 30 days, you talk about we plan to put an ad in the paper. Even though you might know who you're going to hire, you still have to do this. We're going to put an ad in the paper. We're going to do interviews. We're going to call people back for second interviews. Then we're going to select the person to be hired for the position. Also, during that 30 days, you're going to have to sign a lease to get into your building. You're going to have to buy your buy the equipment that you're going to need, the supplies you're going to need. All this should be done in your first 30 to 40 days. Your next thing you should do after you got that informed and together, which is 45 to 90 days, is to start to recruit. So if you're doing teenage pregnancies, you're going to have to put ads in the paper, letting people know about your program. You're going to have interviews for people to come in, and then you're going to select those people that's going to really be part of your program, and then finally you have to start the program. Another part of the grant, after you get your program together, is called the introduction. The introduction is when you begin to talk about what's good about your organization. This is your credibility statement. When you begin to talk about how professional your organization is and your qualifications as an organization. This is going to be very important when you are going for money with the private foundation. Because the government, when you go for government money, they not so much ask for this letter of introduction. They have other things to feed into information from you. But for the purpose of your introduction, for the purpose of private foundation, it should be at least one page and page half. This is when you begin to talk about your employee, your board of directors, for example. A lot of people say, well, we're just getting started and, we really don't have no skills. I say use your board of directors. Use the skill set that they bring to the table. For example, ask every board member, what are you doing? How long have you did it? So one board member said, I did this. Another board for 20 years. Another board member said, I did this for 15 years. Another board member said, look, I watched cars for 10 years. You're going to combine all those years together and say, collectively, we come to the table with over 100 years of experience. So all kind of ways you can do it to make it work when you're just getting started. Conclusion. Well, at no point in the grant should you get personal, unless it's the conclusion. That last paragraph, it's just when you get personal. So that mother who lost her son in the street from violence that we talked about early on, when she started a nonprofit, in this final section right here, in the final paragraph, this is what she's going to say. She's going to say, I started my nonprofit because I lost my son. Get personal during that last part. That's when you get personal. What does that mean? That means if 10 people submit a proposal, if 10 people want to do something to try to, let's say, stop the violence against young people from getting killed, and 9 of those people just talk about the program itself and how wonderful it is. But you not only talk about the program and how wonderful it is, but you show that you got personal stake in this. That you come from a perspective of an emotional perspective of why you got started. And people are going to say, well, okay, we're going to go with this lady right here because we feel her pain, for example. Okay. And then the other thing you want to do is to make sure you get information out. This was critical. When you do get information out, folks, if it's your website, if it's your press release, make sure you mention that your program was funded by whoever gave you money. Again, we talked earlier why corporations give money. They give money because they want the publicity. So if they gave you money, no matter what media you put out, be it online media or hard copy media, make sure that you mention that you got your money from who you got your money from. And then you want to make sure that the appendix includes the following. You make sure you got your list of board directors, any recent annual reports, organizational, physical reports, past success stories, and letters of support. Letters of support are very important because it goes to show people that support you in terms of what's going on. Let's say, for example, the mother who lost her son in the street. She would want to get she would want to get letter support from the police department, letter support from Department of Corrections. They're going to talk about how people commit crime, going to prison. She want to get letter support from city council members, from schools. All of this letter support showing that everybody thinks this is a problem. Appearance. This is very important, folks. If the funder tell you to double space and use single space, you ain't getting that money. If they say double space, double space. If the funder tell you to number your pages and you don't do it, you ain't getting that money. Now, we talked about the problem. We talked about the programs related to the problem. The other part is the evaluation. This is where you show how do you define success. There are 3 types of evaluations, and I'm going to go through real quick, and then we're going to show individual what they stand for. The first is known as a goal-based evaluation. The next is called a process-based evaluation. And then we have what's known as a outcome-based evaluation that most nonprofits use. Let's talk about the goal-based evaluation. A goal-based evaluation is when you evaluate the goals and objectives to make sure that they're consistent with the activities that you say you're going to do. Let's go, for example, if you say your goal is to reduce teenage pregnancy. That's your goal, that's your objective. But yet, your activities goes towards showing people how to cook, for example. It's totally different from your goals and your objectives. So in a goal-based evaluation, you're going to show how your activities and your outcome come back to your goals. The second type of evaluation is known as a logic model or an outcome-based model. In this model, as you can see, it's different sections. The first section is known as resources. Here's where you're going to put down, well, we need 6 staff people, we need 10 computers, we need money for rent. All these things you need is going to be in your resource section. The next section is going to be called the activities section, and this is where you put in the activities you plan to do. For example, in the case of teenage pregnancy, one of your activities might be a mentor program, so that would be an activity. And then the next thing you have to put down is your outputs. Your outputs talks about how many. For example, if you plan to help 100 teenage, if you plan to help 100 teenagers that are at risk of being pregnant, then that will be the number, the outcome. After your outcome is your outcome. Your outcome shows the benefit of the activity. Remember, the activity here was mentor program for teenagers who are at risk of becoming pregnant. Your outcome after you finish your program should be that now that teenager, that young lady that's part of your program is going to defer getting pregnant because she understands that what she learned from your program, if she defers getting pregnant, then her success is going to be even greater. Now, once she defers from getting pregnant as a teenager, the next question is going to be, out of that outcome, what's going to be the impact? Well, the impact is going to be this. That's going to be 5-7 years ago. First, she's not going to be dependent upon government assistance, food stamps, Section 8. She's going to be a productive member of society. More likely, she's going to own a house. She's going to have a good job, and on and on and on. Now, the last type of evaluation is called a theory of change. In a theory of change, you must show the process. When we talk about process outcome, the process to which you can define your results. The first section is, of course, we're going to do the scope of the problem. We're going to talk about the problem. The next section is what we call the intervention, design, and dose. In this section, for example, let's go back to the program that we're trying to get teenagers, we're trying to reduce the pregnancy rate among teenagers. So our program will look like this in terms of our process. We would say this is going to be a 8-week program. And the 8-week program is going to be it's going to be an 8-week program. It's going to be on a weekly basis, twice weekly, and it's going to be 2 hours per class. So now you're given the process to which you plan to bring about change. And also part of that process, you need to talk about What other materials you're going to use to make sure that you're able to make the changes that you're going to make. And then, of course, it's going to come up with your outcome and your impact. Those are the 3 types of evaluation. Now, we got all that out the way. The next part is the organization. You, the organization. And looking at the organization, you have to ask yourself, do we have organizational capacity? You have to ask the question of the why, the who, the what, the how much. For example, why does your organization exist? Who are you? How will you implement your program? You have to fit in all of these questions right here. And you have to have an organizational infrastructure. That means you have to have policies and procedures in place, staffing. You have to show sustainability when it comes to funding. You have to show physical control. The beauty is, once you get started, you can always start to write grants for people to come in to put policies and staffing and all these other things in place. The other tool that you want to use to be successful as a nonprofit from the organization perspective, you want to have a 5-year plan. In your 5-year plan, you want to have your goals, your strategies, your objectives, your tactics, your operational and your methods and your budget. The other thing you want to do when you're going looking at the organization, you want to do what's known as a SWOT analysis. You want to be able to, at least from your 3rd year, you want to be able to identify your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and the threats to your organization. Every organization that's a strong organization have values. Values is, what do you believe? A mission. Why do you exist? A vision. Where are you going at? A strategy. How will you get there? And your tactics, what we would do. And you notice it's long-term, medium, and short-term. When you look at your vision statement, you're looking at the future. When Dr. King said he had a dream, Dr. King, in fact, was articulating what his vision was. The vision is always the way you want the world to look. It's the future. So when Dr. King was looking at the world, and he saw people not being able to go to the school, not sitting on a bus, not being able to sit in a restaurant with people that was not, with people, if he was black.
Hang on while I get connected to Wi-Fi.
I'm sorry, that's my system in the back. I lost my train of thought that way. Anyway, Dr. King articulated his vision. He closed his eyes and he said, this is what the world should look like. A world where people should be judged by the contents of their character and not the skin of their color. So that became his vision of the world. And of course, one of his strategies was to form the Rainbow Coalition. The other thing that you want to definitely have in place as you move forward as a strong nonprofit is a business plan, an operational plan, a financial management plan, fundraising strategy, a safety and risk management, a marketing and branding strategy, a partnership/collaborative strategy. Keep in mind again, once you get your 501c3, now you can go out, get grants, and get people to come in and to put together these right, critical, essential documents. Funding. A lot of funders are going to ask, what are you going to do when our funding stops? What's your strategies on future funding? Let's talk about that. As you can see, we have what's known, we believe in a social entrepreneurship approach to how we make sure we got sustainable funding. Let me read what this is. It's the ability to fund the future as a nonprofit through a combination of earned income. Don't forget that term, and earned income, charitable contribution, and public subsidies. The earned income is used to pursue social objectives by simultaneously seeking both financial and social return on investment. Let's look at what that looks like. Well, when we look at how do we bring in money, we call it resource. One is grants. We write grants and we get grants. If you only depend on grants to run your organization, you're going to die. Simple as that. Another way of bringing in money is fee for services. Development fees. For example, if you are a nonprofit and you're doing, you're building affordable housing, you can be the developer and get a development fee, and that fee can go back into your community. Consultant fees. If you become so good at what you do, now people want to hire you to come and show them how to do it. But the most important thing, and this is most important, is to be able to own and operate your own business. Own and operate your own business. Because when you become the ability to own and operate your own business, and we call it earned income as a strategy to bring in money, then you no longer become totally dependent upon government grants or dependent upon foundation grants. Because he who controls the money controls. That means that if I'm giving you money and you acting stupid, I can pull that money, which means that you might not be serving your community because the powers that be that's giving you money not liking what you're doing. When you got your own businesses, your own earned income, and can fund your own programs, you can actually represent and serve your community. We cannot rely upon grants as a way to solving our problems of sustainability. We must use an earned income approach to bringing the money in. To, for example, provide money for our programs. Programs can be anywhere from employment to affordable housing, whatever the case. The money that comes from here, we fund our programs, and the benefits is increased employment, all these different benefits, including the quality of life. And the benefits, the return of our investment to the city is that it increases the city's tax base because of what we're doing. It reduces the city services. It increases the return on investment. So all these things are part of what we call social entrepreneur approach. The budget. Well, got to do your budget. You got to know how to put the money together. A budget is more than a statement of a proposed expenditures. It is an ultimate way of expressing your project. The first type of cost is what's known as direct cost. Direct cost is what you're paying directly to your employees that's on the front line. What do I mean by front line? Let's say, for example, you got a school. The people on the front line are your teachers, the secretaries, the people that are feeding people. Those are your frontline people. That's what we call direct cost. There's another cost called indirect cost. And the indirect cost is the cost you need to pay in order for your organization to keep on functioning. For example, you need an accountant to make sure your finances are in order. You need a lawyer to make sure your legal matters are in order. So indirect is going towards those people that you bring on board to make sure that your organization is functioning like it's supposed to be. And then you have what's known as cost sharing. That's when two organizations get together and y'all might share the cost. And of course, then you have what's known as in-kind support. So, I want to thank everybody for coming to the class, today's class. Again, as you can see, we provided services to over 1,800 nonprofits and faith-based groups and individuals and businesses throughout the United States. And I hope this has been of benefit to you. Again, we do so many different other programs. We want you to tie into those programs that we do. We're going to end this class here. I'm going to make sure you get your presentation that I just presented. Now, before I go, are there any questions? Is everybody good?
Yes, I'm good. I actually want to set up a meeting with you so that I can get my process started.
Good, because
If
we
that's
want to move
available.
forward on your project. Look, share with us, because I think you bring home, man, why nonprofits do what they do. Share with us why you want to start your nonprofit. Bring it home.
Yes, I wanted to start my nonprofit because I was the victim of domestic violence, and going through the system of what was supposed to be resources, it kind of added more strain than, relief. And I wanted to be an advocate on, actually helping people while they're going through it, and also provide them sustainability and confidence moving forward once they finish with my particular nonprofit program.
Actually, because see, you're the reason why I do what I do. Because people have to get off the seat and looking at TV. And you have to solve the problem. And nonprofits rock. Nonprofits solve the problem. So I want to again thank everybody that attended today's class. Have a great weekend. And let's go out there and make a difference. And again, as I promised, I'll make sure you get this presentation. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you.